Okay, so we are recording. This is week 1 of our series on Facebook Live, and I'm going to go live on Facebook right now. I'm going to send you to the waiting room, and then I'll bring you back. I'm just going to
Okay.
do a little intro on who I am, and then I'll invite you, and I'll bring you back. Put in the waiting room now. Hola, Nancy. I'm actually going to tag Maggie before we get started, if I can. How are you doing, Nancy? Hola, hola, hola. Hi, Barry. How's it going? Thank you for joining us, usual. I'm going to see if I can tag, but it does not let me do that. Let me see from my phone. How is everyone doing today? It's Taco Tuesday. Some people at the office are enjoying some tacos. I'm certainly not. All right, this is talking here. Pretty good, Barry. Gilberto, ¿cómo estás? Okay, I cannot tag her right now here, but I will do that after. Hi, Andrea. Okay. All right, let's get started. All right, my name is Ainhoa Garcia. I am a realtor with Realty of Chicago. I have been in the industry for over 5 years, and I have seen already a lot happening in the marketplace, from properties not appraising to sellers doing all repairs in properties, giving seller credits, price reductions, and then multiple offer situations, minuses, and the list goes on and on. Today, we're talking about single family houses and condo townhouses purchases with one of our main guests and partners. Her name is Maggie Martinez with Guarantee Rate, and she's going to be joining us in just a second. We're going to talk about what the market, real estate market, is doing today, and also interest rates. I know everyone is asking in the streets, what's happening with the interest rates? Is it a good time to buy now? Should we wait? We get these questions over and over. So today, I hope you find some value in this video with our guest speaker, Maggie. As I said, I'm going to let her in, and we are going to get it started. Okay. Hello, Maggie.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. Well, not as good as you. You're glowing. Where are you at?
Thank you, thank you. So I'm in Cancun, but funny story. I decided to take a last minute vacation with my family. It was supposed to be a Thursday to Sunday type of deal, but thanks to the awesome spring breakers, I think the airport was a little overflown and they moved flights around. So we ended up getting stuck until tomorrow, but I'm embracing it. I don't think I can say that I'm stranded in Cancun. Those two words just don't seem like they fit in a sentence.
They don't. They don't. And you're literally glowing. Your skin is glowing. I love it.
Thank you, thank you. I definitely needed it, so I'm excited. So I'm happy. I was gonna show you guys like my background, but the light's too bright, so all you're gonna see is like a halo behind me. Um, and maybe you guys will get a chance to look at the. Oh, I'm sorry about that, guys. Maybe you'll get a chance to look at the waves or hear the waves at least. But it's great. How about you? How are you doing?
I'm I'm okay. I'm good. It's just Chicago is starting to feel like a spring, but the last few days that you were in here, it's been snowing slash raining,
Oh,
cold, really warm. It's a little weird, but it is Chicago, so we're in a spring. Hopefully, we get warmer days ahead. But yeah, I thank you for joining us today. We wanted to invite you and talk about what's happening in this market. I guess it's just like Chicago weather. That's what's happening in this market, really hot and the snow and getting a slap in the face sometimes. But yeah, thank you for joining us, Maggie.
well, thank you for having me. I'm definitely honored to share the space with you, and hopefully, we can throw out some information that's helpful for anyone that's considering buying or selling, right? Because it's been chaotic. I can agree.
Okay, awesome. Well, before we get started, who are you? Tell us about yourself.
So, guys, I mean, I'm a servant. My name is Maggie Martinez. I'm a mortgage lender. I'm a loan officer. I ran one of the branches with Guarantee Rate. We're looking to open up a location in the Oak Park area soon. We're working on just some last minute things. But overall, I mean, I like to describe myself as, again, someone to service the community. My goal is to try to help as many families as I can while exercising. Oh, sorry. You know what, guys? I apologize if my phone goes in and out. I had to join from my phone because of where I'm at. So if I get a call, you might get a little slight interruption. So I'm sorry about that. But my goal is to just educate clients, right? I want to make sure that anybody that comes my way understands how to go about the financial side when purchasing real estate. And that's just really how I put myself out there in the world. So, yeah.
Awesome. How long have you been in real estate?
So overall in real estate, I've been a little bit over 7 years. The mortgage industry welcomed me and hugged me a little over 3 years now. So I definitely understand the ins and outs of being in the transaction from start to finish. So it's very rewarding to say the least.
It is. It is. It is an amazing job. It really is. But we're
Yeah.
also facing a lot of challenges in this market. And I wanted to go on this video today with you to kind of bring some, I would say also like calming pills. Some people are a little stressing out about what's happening with multiple offer situations, with appraisal gap, with being outbidded over and over, and especially now in the last couple of weeks, or I would say the whole month, but especially the last 2 weeks with the interest rates increasing, and some people are maybe taking a side street or just passenger seat and waiting and waiting and waiting to see if the market will get better for them to make that decision to actually invest into a property this year. So I wanted to talk with you about interest rates first, if that's okay. Where are you seeing in the interest rate market?
So the rates have definitely fluctuated, right? We see the
Yes.
rates come in and out. Um,
Quick
no
second
problem.
to interrupt.
Sorry, maybe.
Apparently, we're not public as far as the setting goes. I decreated as public. See the little bolita here? That's the world.
It doesn't show here public. Or
I
actually,
did
now it
it.
does. Now it does, yeah. It didn't
Okay.
show at all.
No, in the beginning, I had to go and change
You
it.
had to change it. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you for checking.
Yes,
So,
but so
where are
yeah,
the interest rates?
definitely. Yeah, rates have been volatile, right? We've seen several increases in the beginning of the year, which of course is scary because we had a good strike of 2 years where we fell in love with the twos and then we accepted the threes. And now we are, to be quite frank, and you might remember this, I know prior to the pandemic, I think our average rates were probably somewhere in the mid fours. And for certain buyers, it was in the fives. So I try to be careful, and I don't mean to like minimize the worry, but rates right now are normalizing. Now, when and I get it, right? Nobody wants to be that person that bought on the wrong time. Nobody wants that. But it's also important that we have a full round education on what's going on in the market, right? We're going through very like interesting times. We have inventory working against us. I think nationwide we're about 4 million homes short. We have inflation, right? Everything's more expensive. We just went through a pandemic. Gas prices are up. So we're dealing with inflation. And then we are dealing with the interest rates, right? And typically the interest rates, the way they move is higher rates tend to be a good cue for a healthier economy in a sense. And the rates move with the 10-year treasury. So for no one can predict what's going to happen. I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, you're wrong if you do A or B, but what everything points out to be that right now is still the cheapest time to buy versus the next 6 to 12 months, right? Some speculate that the rates are going to be somewhere in the six by the end of the year, going into next year. So the more the rates increase, the higher that payment becomes and the lower your pre-approval buying power will be. I don't know that a lot of folks know this at times, but I always try to tell my clients, when a mortgage bank qualifies you for a loan, they don't qualify you for a purchase price. They actually qualify you for a payment amount. They want to make sure that you as a consumer, whatever income you have coming in, you're able to comfortably, based on guidelines, whether depending on the financing that you're taking, that payment is still going to stay within that guideline limits for debt to income ratios. So of course, the higher the payment because of the rate, the lower the principal and interest would have to be, right? So my only advice to folks is just to really internalize and say, why am I buying, right? What is the purpose of this purchase? And I always tell my clients, obviously it's a financial decision, but for a lot of us, especially if it's a first time buyer, like it was for me, it was an emotional one too, right? Because your lifestyle changes. And I think that as long as you're doing the math and you're nickel and diming, and that payment makes sense to you and your budget and your affordability, then go ahead and move a step forward. Now, there's a lot of challenges in the market, and you know it. I mean, you're going through it, right? I think for both of us, we're in that weird stage where like 2-3 months ago, I was quoting clients like in the low threes, and some of those clients are in the high fours, fives. So going through that, that clientele, we have to reset expectations. And then unfortunately, prices are not dropping. They're staying where they are. But it's going to be something that we just need to look in the face and just know that we have to deal with it. Right. So yeah, that's my take on that.
Something that I know I agree 1,000%. Something that I do tell, because I guess I'll backtrack a little bit. We went under contract with a client that was quoted differently when they did their pre-approval. By the time we went under contract and secured or locked the rate, it was quite a bit higher, which made a difference in their monthly payment of $129. For some people, $129 is not a big difference, but for some other, they panic because they were already kind of like at their limit of their comfort zone. We check with the lender. Do they qualify? Of course, yes, they do. It's just their comfort zone. Understanding what you said, right? Understanding what your monthly responsibilities are, and really take that deep look at your fixed expenses and your flexible expenses. Some of the times that you are dining out, maybe by cutting a couple of those off, you might be able to just afford this payment just fine. Obviously, every single case is different, but we did have to have a conversation after going under contract and already talking about earnest money, already setting up the inspection time. We had a conversation because there were doubts. We're like, are we really moving forward? or are we just going to have to cancel?
Yeah.
We're likely moving forward because we took a look at those fixed expenses and flexible expenses per month. And he did realize that everything that he was worried about is manageable. So that payment in his type of pre-approval and now monthly payment for his mortgage is going to work out. Now, another topic that we discussed during this conversation with the client was that nobody is married to any mortgage rate. Yes, you are locked, but if the market becomes a better place and we, for whatever reason, we go back to the threes or the twos, I mean, who knows, right, with war pandemic, but if there's improvement, they will be able to do a modification in their loan and refinance for a lower rate if they have already closed on the property. They're not fully married to that rate, but they are by the for the time until that happens, if it does happen. So they do have to be comfortable with that payment regardless. And another thing that I did touch base with him is people that they were buying with us in 2019 and 2018. I remember this, and it's actually it was with you as a lender. We had, I'm not going to say the name of the client, but we did have a client that closed almost in the 6 or 6.2 in December of 2018. And we were just fine with that because those were the rates we were facing, and everybody
Mhm.
was buying just fine. Now we got really comfortable with the 2 years pandemic. I would say comfortable just on the rates. There were other issues in the world, but on the we got comfortable with having those lower numbers. And those people that waited thinking that, I'm just going to wait a little longer. Well, the train passed. The
Yeah.
train passed for that one.
And you know what? There's nothing worse than to see an opportunity through the review mirror, right? And I think I know a lot of clients that held off, that they were waiting for the market to crash, that they were waiting for foreclosures to hit, or they were simply not an urgency, right? They were just kind of cruising, testing the waters. Which, you know what? In all fairness, I get it, right? We all have a different perspective of going into the home purchase. I think that the only thing that I continue to emphasize is just internalize, why do you want a home? Where is it in your timeline to get into this house? And if you are not willing to say yes, just know that tomorrow does not always look better, right? Just as you, because we always hope and pray for better. We always say, God willing, things will, we're always thinking positive, which is great. But when it comes down to real estate, just like any other investment, it's unpredictable. It moves around. And technically speaking, and I think another thing that we got spoiled in, I know was that for the 10 to 15 years after the crash, we had seen an increase in appreciation in the double digits, right? So we also got used to that, right? Like instant gratification. I want to buy a house and sell it like in a year and a half and make a profit. Real estate is more of a long-term stable investment. So I just think that you have to have all those pieces in place. And at the end of the day, no matter what your situation is or what your, perspective on the market, if you're renting and you know that you're going to be renting for an X amount of years, buying makes sense. There's nothing that justifies, if you have the credit, if you have the income, and if you have, the possibility to come up with your cash to close, nothing will justify throwing your money in this black hole that's called rent, period. No matter what the terms are. Even if you have a higher, I have clients, and there's clients that don't even have the benefit of dipping into these rates because they have to go through specific financing, like our I-10 clients, right? But even our I-10 clients, they know the value of owning, and they go into these purchases with less attractive terms than a regular client going through regular FHA or conventional financing. So whatever you do, if you know that you're going to be paying your housing expenses for the next few years, look into the options of purchasing. Another thing that I want to remind clients is something that maybe we stood away from over the last few years was variable rates, right? I know we love how 30 years fixed sounds. Variable rates are not the worst. You just have to understand how the product functions. And back to what you said, and I always tell my clients this, listen, even if this is your forever home, this is probably, and I would hate this 30-year fixed loan to be your forever loan. So no matter how you're going into it, you always have to have a good mortgage strategy. It's not always about the rate. It's about understanding how the mortgage product works and how you, throughout the years, and what you're planning to do with the house. If you're planning on purchasing a home, living in the home now, and maybe purchasing another home in the future because you upgrade and you leave this home as a rental, you have to have a good mortgage strategy until you pay that loan off. And having those conversations with your loan officer are very important. So yeah, not your forever loan, even if it's your forever home. That's my thing.
That's actually, I'm taking that.
You're
I'm taking
You can
And
take your comment.
now that you said forever home, it kind of ties up with the topic of today, which is more focused on single family houses and condos. So some people, I'm really, especially for our entry buyer, that we have a lot of buyers, entry level or first time home buyers, that they really want to see themselves into a single family house with 3 or 4 bedrooms, with a finished basement. And we really want to help them. Now, inventory, it's not like there is a huge lack of inventory. There is. But there are properties that they're hitting the market. It's just that the demand for them is higher, right? The properties are just flying off the shelves. And sometimes, if we don't have that really, 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 really high profile to buy that one specific home, we might have to look into not that ideal home of yours, which I'm not saying that we have to drop off our dreams or not um, focus on what really, really, what you really want. However, I would hate for you to be looking in the market for 4 months, 5 months, not really being realistic or having the right expectations for today's market, instead of saying, you know what, actually, my goal is to have these home until I upgrade to the next one in the next 5 years or so, maybe the first 3. You know what? I'm going to look into a condo instead that it can still very, very manageable. I always say for investing in condos, as long as investor friendly, pet friendly, or near public transportation, near expressways, near shopping centers, schools, things like that, that will make it more appealing for renting and also selling. It's not a bad investment. The worst part of all of these will be, as you said before, staying renting. But now finding that forever home, or that even not the forever, but the first home being a single family, but maybe, you know what, our budget, to be realistic, we should, because we really want to stay in ABC area, and the single family homes are really out of my range. Let's not discard the idea of looking into townhouses or condos for a budget that is more convenient or comfortable for your monthly payment and your type of approval, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to, I know some people are kind of, when you meet with clients, they first, for the most part, most of our buyers for single family houses, they just want to focus on single families. They really have that. They want to have a yarda. They want to have, you know, they want to have their basement finished, or at least a space for it. They want to have a garage, sometimes a driveway, and all of that is beautiful. And we set up the search. But I want to have a conversation with every single one of our buyers that they're still on the sidelines, that they're still not getting into homes because of multiple offer situations, because we're aiming a little bit high when, and again, I'm not trying to discourage anyone. We really look and send offers for single families. I'm just opening that pool of properties for them so they can stop renting sooner and they take advantage of the market sooner. And a condo might not be the ideal for them for the longer term, but it's still will be better than waiting in the sideline and continuing renting another year. That's just my 2 cents with that. What is your input with condos and single family houses, or versus single family houses?
You know what? I think it's it's funny, right? Because I feel like we have all been conditioned to think and want certain things, right? And I think that a lot of my clients that come in and they're like, no, I want a single family home. That's the dream. That's what I want. It's kind of like, when you're younger, you're like, nope, I'm going to school, then getting married, then the kids. And then you realize that sometimes life throws the kid first, then the marriage, then the house, maybe even then the school, right? Like, we all have to adapt. And I think that for my clients, and I mean this in the most respectful way, you might have the vision, you might have all the will, and you might really want to be within a certain area in a certain space. But our job as professionals is to educate you and educate you on what's going on with the market, right? It's never intended to not assist you. It's always intended to give you the best perspective that you can have so you can easily manage, honestly, a lot of the emotions that going through buying. And I think that the worst thing a client can do when they're buying anything is to just fixate on, like narrow it down to the space, right? You got to know everything and you got to understand the pros and cons of everything. I think the condo house thing is really a lifestyle question, right? In a condo, it's a little bit less responsibilities, right? If you ever own a home, I own a home now, and it's hard to keep up with a house, right? The landscape, the cleaning, the outside, it's a lot of responsibility. With a condo, you don't have to, because depending on the condominium that you purchase, a lot of there's amenities that are attached with it and services that are attached with it. So all you have to worry about is your space. The common areas are going to be taken care of. So that's a lifestyle decision. Yes, you share the space with other folks, but then again, you might be able to live, and this is crazy. I'm gonna share with this. I have a client that recently, quote unquote, she said downgraded. At first, she said, I'm downgrading from a house to a condo because of the affordability situation. But once she got into her home, she actually just moved this weekend. She said, you know what, Maggie? I actually didn't downgrade. My kitchen's nicer. My bathroom is nicer. My bedroom is bigger than it was on my home. So she's like, I actually feel like I upgraded. Yes, I have neighbors upstairs, downstairs, but the walls are so like, I hear no noise. I love it. And I was very happy when I heard that. And I think that overall, the big thing with a family home, it's the privacy, right? You have more privacy. You have more will to be able to do as you please with your home. When you have a condo, as you know, that there might be certain restrictions, which again, your realtor, I know, you can ask for that in advance, right? Anything that's detrimental to the client, right? Like if there's noise restrictions, pet restrictions, if you plan this to only be a temporary home and eventually you want to keep the property and you want to lease, are there any lease restrictions, right? So I think it's a lifestyle question, but like everything else in life, right? You adapt and you go as you can, right? Nobody starts like up here, right? Like I don't even think I live in my dream home now, and it's okay, right? Because the house that I live with, it's what fits my family now, and it's close to work, and it's in the area that I want to be in. So it's baby steps, just like with everything else. But I think the condo option is a great option. You just have to make sure that you do your due diligence as you're going into the property.
Right. No, and as you said, it's a lifestyle decision too.
Mhm.
And we have all different type of buyers, from cash to conventional 50%, 20%, 30%, 15, 10. I mean, all numbers percent for conventional. And then we also have some FHA buyers that they have an easier way with a single family, that for townhouses, if they are eligible for FHA, than it is sometimes for condos, just because the building might have not done the paperwork needed, or they might not meet the criteria to be even SPART approved just per unit. So talking about that, because we have a lot of condo buyers now, a lot of millennials, a lot of younger folks that they are looking into condos this year, and they want to take advantage of the 3.5% down payment for FHA for an entry-level condo. So let's talk about FHA spot approval for condos. what is important to consider, especially as buyers agents, to ask those listing agents and those associations, what is important to know whether or not this unit could be spot approved for FHA?
So just to give a little bit more context on the question you're asking. So typical buyer will normally go with FHA or conventional financing. Conventional, it's more accepted in the condo world, just because it has less restrictions, although there's still due diligence that needs to get done even on a conventional loan, right? So typically clients buys conventional, and we have to ask for, certificate of insurance. We have to ask for bylaws, make sure that we have condo questionnaire filled out, that the clients, that the condo association is meeting their reserve requirements under yearly budget. So there's still some due diligence done. And the reason why is because since you as the owner, you only go into the property and you are responsible for your space, we need to make sure that who's responsible of the building and the common areas, that everything's in place to make sure that the building and the property is well maintained, right? We don't want to get into a space where, and it's happened, I don't know, I'm pretty sure it's happened to you, where you go to see a condo and like literally, I mean, I've seen places where the grass is like weeds everywhere. You walk in and like the door, I've seen terrible things, right? So when you're sharing space with people, you want to make sure that everybody's doing their part. So with a condo conventional loan, they're going to be looking out for that. Now, FHA, and a lot of you guys might know this because FHA, there's like a terrible like misjustice to FHA. I will not get into that, just because I feel like even buying a single family home, a lot of times our FHA buyers are suffering from a little bit of, being able to have that ability to submit an offer and get their offer accepted. The FHA really, it's almost like a disadvantage for some folks. I hate to say it that way, but that's really what it is, right? Especially in a market where it's so aggressive and there's so many buyers. I do tell my buyers, and again, I don't mean this like you just said, it's not a discouraging, it's more informative and just setting expectations. If I have a client that I issue an FHA pre-approval, I always tell them, listen, you may or may not run into issues depending on the area that you're looking at and how competitive that area is, because every zip code is different. But I would not throw it like, I would not dismiss you having a plan to convert that FHA pre-approval to a conventional one. You can go out, start looking with your FHA, very solid pre-approval. It's a very strong, you can have very strong FHA buyers. But sometimes if listing agencies and they see conventional, they tend to lean on conventional a little bit more. With a lot of it's involved, back in 2008, after the recession, a lot of people were bankrupt, foreclosed. They had short sales, right? So because FHA welcomes and it's a little bit more welcoming to these borrowers with these delinquencies per se, it almost became like a trend, right? Like, oh, if you're FHA, it's because you probably have an issue. And that mentality just kind of stayed over the years and it repeated itself over and over again. It's not the case, right? There's a lot of reasons why clients leaning on FHA. And some of them they might have had a little boo-boo on the record, and there's more forgiveness on the FHA side with the waiting time periods than on the conventional end. So there's a stigma over FHA. And I think that the only thing that there's some validity to it, which ties back to the FHA spot approvals that you were mentioning, is that FHA tends to be a little bit more particular about their appraisals. And if I can summarize it, I would say that FHA tends to look at healthy hazards and security hazards a little closely, right? They won't accept a house that has peeling paint because of what? They won't accept broken tiles because they might be asbestos underneath them, and that's bad for your health. Broken windows, missing rails, things of that nature that FHA wants to make sure that whoever the family is that's moving in, because it's a government-backed loan, that they're going to be safe and healthy, right? And that's in the space. Not to say that conventional is going to finance just anything. HUD also has standards for conventional, right? So there's still things that might come up in a conventional pre-approval, but FHA is a little bit more strict. And talking about condos specifically, going back to the conversation, you're buying a condo, you're buying the space inside that apartment unit. You're not buying the building. So the building, technically speaking, in order to do FHA financing, the building needs to meet FHA guidelines and criteria. And a lot of associations, they don't go through the process because one is a lengthy one. And sometimes they don't know how to go through it. Sometimes they just, it doesn't seem like it's a priority based on the mixed flow that, the flow that they have of residents. But the nice thing, there is a product that was released a few years ago. And actually, FHA likes to refer to it as a single unit approval. For some reason, they don't like spot approval, but that's the way we interpret it with the public. And a single unit approval, instead of qualifying the whole building, they just qualify the unit. And that approval normally, just so you can see the difference, if the homeowners association provides all the documentation as they are required to, also on a regular, approval of a project, or even in a condo purchase, if they render all the documentation we need and we submit it, it normally takes 2 to 3 days to get a spot approval. And it's good for 3 years versus a full project approval, approving the building per se, or the project, that can take up to 45 days. So as you can imagine, somebody that's buying, you go and you knock on a listing agent and you tell them, obviously the spot approval seems more attractive. I would almost say, Ainoa, that the conversation really relies more with the listing agent. There's amazing real estate professionals in the business, and they're willing to entertain any interested party. But we need their help, right? Because we need a lot of that documentation and the communication with the association. So depending, and again, going back to it's a hot market, right? Depending on how resourceful and flexible they are, we can get this and knock it out if we get all the documentation in a few days and give our buyer an opportunity to bid on this home. I've noticed in a lot of the cases that I've done a single unit approval, spot approval, that the listing agent will say like, listen, go for it. I have no offers, right? So it's not like that house is getting sold today. Here's the association's information, get the documentation you need from them, but we're not accepting an offer until the spot approval is actually approved.
And
because
that makes sense. That
it makes sense, right?
sense. That agent is also looking for the best interest of their seller, not going under contract with a buyer that might or might not be able to secure financing without an FHA spot approval. Now, we on the seller side, because we represent a lot of sellers, as you know, we actually take that a step, whether we need it or not. We always talked with our condo sellers about the possibility of exploring this option, just because if we have this pool of buyers that they will be able to take a look at that property, this is just conventional cash. If we're able to have it FHA spot approved, we are targeting a bigger audience. We have more buyers that they will be qualified and ready to submit an offer for that specific property. So we don't limit ourselves to just conventional buyers for our condos if we can gather the information up front, which we do. We always ask, as long as it's investor friendly, and this is if anybody is watching that is a seller that is thinking of selling, they are in a building, they don't know what this is. It's pretty much opening the door to more buyers for your unit. And we just ask that they provided us with, as you said, the HOA provide us with the bylaws, with the rules or regulations, with the condo questionnaire. Sometimes there is a fee for a condo questionnaire, but sometimes it makes sense to pay it and just get that done. We always like to see, or we always, like I am an FHA approval person, but they like to see that the home is able to be rented, no rental restrictions, investor friendly. They don't want to see delinquencies also on the HOA payments. They want to see healthy finances, and they want to see 10% of these budget of this year going into reserves. So those are just little things that they will be looking into. But
Wouldn't you want that too, as a buyer? Wouldn't you want to have those things in order? I feel like it's I would want to.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And even for on the seller side, to get to know the building better and to open the door to more buyers so they can offer, or we can have even several offers for our sellers. On the buyer side, when we are representing a buyer, getting to know the ins and outs of that building and getting to know that it's a healthy, financially healthy building, that they don't have any special assessments. If they do they have the funds allocated for it? How are the reserves looking? It's really our due diligence as agents too, to help other agents understand the importance of this piece. We
Yeah.
have a lot of buyers that they're entry level and they have FHA financing, and they are condos staying in the market, even though this is a seller's market, generally speaking. If we talk about specific areas and specific price ranges, there's
Mm-hmm.
still condos sitting in the market for a long time. And that is a disfavor to those sellers as well in these condos. Because what if you explore the option FHA and get entry level buyers into these condos that they are sitting in the market? So it's all also about educating our peers, our sellers, our buyers with accepting that an FHA loan is as quote unquote good than a conventional
Yes.
for
No.
condos.
And one
We're
of the
gonna
things.
need to like zzz, and I think we're consuming a lot of time, but are you
Yeah.
having fun though?
No, no, no. It's all great information, and it's I'm a very passionate person, right? And I think that it's important to understand how this works, right? And I think that when my consumers and my my interested families are looking for condos, the piece with getting the condo, everything approved for financing is very important. And it's kind of one of those things that like you don't know until you meet them, right? And it's like I've had situations where we're okay to close, but all we need is the condo approval to be completed, and we can't complete it because we don't have the proper documentation. We're not getting response. And I don't know, I mean, I know you as a person and in business, and I know you have a high moral of level of doing any kind of relationship. And I think that you're as versatile on the listing side as you are on the buyer side. And I think that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not a realtor, but I've had conversations with some clients where I'm like, listen, we're sitting here, we're waiting 2 weeks, 3 weeks for documentation because you're trying to buy the condo. It's not the seller's fault. The seller can control this. So they're not trying to pull a fast one. But, you know, think about what this is going to look like when you sell your property, right? Because I feel like that's something to take into consideration. What would you what's your intake on that? I guess. I mean, I'm not a realtor, and I don't know if that's the most proper thing to say to a client. Like, I don't want to discourage a client, but I also think that it's important to think about, reselling that property, or if there are some issues and we're trying to work through them, how is that going to affect you when you sell, right? But what is your take on that as an agent?
As an agent, communication,
Yes.
I'm a huge and anything that has to do with communication. You call me, I cannot pick up, I'll call you back. You leave me a voicemail, I'll call you back. Either today or tomorrow, you get your call back. You send me an email, you don't worry, I will respond to it. Communication is key. If you are seeing already a lack of communication from, I have this little thing that it keeps on picking my hair, me voy a quedar calva. Sorry, I just put it back. So we have issues communicating, getting documents from the HOA. And we have had it in the past that they were hiding things. That's why they were not communicating well.
Yep.
But just the simple fact of not communicating right or not communicating well, it already throws me off a little bit. If we have tried, I understand people are busy, I understand HOAs are busy, but after 7 days of trying, and I will give the whole week of emailing, calling, texting, trying to get in touch, even using, through or using the mediator of the listing agent or the buyer's agent if I'm on the other side, involving sometimes even the attorneys if it's needed to get that update that we're not really getting. Can we have another person that can, take that call? So I would say if I see red flag, it's on communication or choppy documents, things sent not in a timely manner, not in the most professional format. If I don't see clarity on things, I already tell the client whether on one side or the other, HOA needs some improvement. Whatever is self-managed, they need to figure it out what their standards are and how they are going to be managing this property, even if it's self. Sometimes I tell my clients if it's self-managed, are you looking to become part of the association? Maybe if you are volunteering your time and you want to be part of it and make things better, but you gotta have some things straight here. And when it's a third-party company and you're dealing with an association or a third-party management company that they don't respond, they don't send things on time, they are sometimes even rude on the phone or via email. So it's all about trying to find that at the end of the day, we want the same outcome. Buyer
Right.
side, seller side, we all want the same outcome, which is closing on this transaction, making sure that everyone feels this was a fair transaction and we can close and move on with our lives. But the HOA sometimes is just kind of like you sell or not, I'm getting paid my HOA whether you sell or not. So sometimes it's a little bit of a battle. As long as we have the right documents up front, we do that for on our listing side, we contact the HOA before we list. Whether we're going to explore the FHA spot approval or not, we always reach out to the HOA to gather as much information as possible so we can actually have as much information as possible for those potential buyers. So communication is key. I would say responding to your question on what my intake is, I would say communication is key. And then once we receive the documents, if we are missing pieces, if things don't seem clear, if we're not getting what we need, I would be a little hesitant to move forward unless the client is fully informed and willing to move forward.
Oh, of course.
We're not mandating what people need to do. We're just like, okay, here is as much information as we received, so you can make an informed decision. You can
Yeah.
move forward or you can cancel today. But this is what we're dealing with in the association. We have dealt with quite a few issues with HOAs in our condo purchases or sales. And we just, sometimes we put the big girl pants and we have to say things a little bit more assertive because we needed to get certain things in a certain time and done in a certain way. We just got some bylaws corrected because that needed to be corrected. It was not making sense. So we're not attorneys, we're not lenders, we cannot do certain things. We can just suggest certain things at some point. But having a good team that will back you up and ask the right questions, either on the buyer, on the seller side, and help you actually achieve that purchase, either on condo, since we were focusing on condo, or single family house, that either or we will be there to support and ask the right questions.
Yeah.
So that's not my
Awesome.
input.
Yeah, no, and I think that you do all that homework up front. I think that's amazing, to be in contact with the association ahead of time if you're listing a condo. I think that's amazing.
It's needed. It's needed. And in this market, it's needed too. The less headaches as possible, the better.
The more we can control.
So the more you know, the more the less it hurts, maybe. I don't know. I just made that one up. I wanted to talk about appraisal gap before we are done with this evening. And then I do have another question after that. But let's talk a little bit about, I know appraisal is part of every process unless you're purchasing in cash. Either you're financing FHA, VA, or conventional financing, we are facing issues with our appraisals. It's actually a conversation that we heard, you and I, in Washington, D.C., with the senators about making some changes on this. But without taking it there, just here locally with the main issues that we are facing, what it is appraisal gap, and what is your opinion on that?
So the appraisal gap would be the borrower paying the difference between what the house appraised at and the original sales contract agreed price, right? So you go into contract for $300,000, the appraisal comes back let's say, I don't know, 290, and that difference, it's pretty much up to the buyer. If the seller's not budgeting, the seller might just come back and say, well, either you pay that difference out of pocket or we move on, right? um I think it's a very case by case scenarios. I particularly myself in the last transaction that I had, which was it was mid of 2020 when the pandemic started. I paid an appraisal gap for my house. We went back and forth. We were short about 35 grand on value. The seller on my transaction was an investor, and he had three similar projects coming up. So for him, it was not $30,000, $35,000. It was that times the three projects that he had, correct? Because he's obviously going to use that house as a comp. We went back and forth, and he somewhat met me halfway. But I ended up paying a gap. Why? Because there was literally no houses around. Two, it was a need. Like I needed to be out of my old home into my new home, and it made sense. It made sense to do that versus not knowing when I was going to find another house. I think the difference that I ended up paying was, I don't remember if it was 5,000 or 10,000, to be honest. But my logic was, how much is it going to cost me to pass on this home, have to get rid of the old home, have to pay movers, lease temporarily, and then cross my fingers that I buy a house in a convenient time for everything to happen. And
Yeah.
it, to me, and luckily, God willing, and I was like, God willing, this is going to be a good call. Because again, we never know what the market's going to do. But for me, for my family, the inconvenience and all the headache and the stress, mind you, this was the time where me as a mortgage loan officer, I was busy. I mean, you remember how that was. I mean, we were working, like I was working 12, 16 hours a day. It was insane. So I had no time. So for my lifestyle decision, it was a no-brainer. Now, that's not the case for everyone, but I would definitely say just obviously know your budget. If you have that flexibility and you want to outweigh it, think about everything that's going to impact if you don't do it. How soon did it take you to find this house? How soon is it going to take you to find another house? Are you going to have to pay rent in exchange? Are you, how is it going to impact you? And then based on that, put a number on it. Everything that you just put a number
Yeah.
on it. Whatever that number is, that's it. It really just goes down to that.
I agree. I actually, and we were discussing this briefly before. I agree. When you ask me, what's your opinion? It is case by case. We have entry level buyers that they are really putting together their dollars to get into homes. And you can't tell someone that has come to the closing table or needs to come to the closing table with in agreement 5K and now needs to come with 10K. So that 5K
Yeah.
difference, it's really going to make it's going to break it. It's just going to break it. They don't have it. And sometimes it's, they don't have any reserves. They're not going to have anything for buying furniture. I mean, they're really coming to the table with everything they've got. And we can't really risk or play those games, and unless, again, everything is about communicating and about setting the right expectations and having them making that decision. Sometimes with the market that we're facing right now with multiple offer situations, I remember last July, the average home had 17 offers on the table.
Oh my God.
Already 17. July of 2021 was 17 offers on the table, the medium number. And right now we're already seeing that. We see 9, 10, 12, 20, 7, 5 offers. We see that all the time. In order to compete, a lot of our buyers are being, I say our buyer or buyers in this marketplace, they are being advised to sign a document that is going to technically let the seller know whether this home appraised at this value or not. I'm coming out of my pocket to meet this price up to this. So having that, and as we said, there are scenarios where it's absolutely not possible, and there are scenarios where, as you said, by putting in consideration, everything else that would happen if you don't make that decision, and what is the cost of waiting, what is the cost of movers, what is the cost of all of that. I always say, if this is, we have clients that they are in the 450 range or in the 500,000, and we know that the home might not appraise, but sometimes we take a risk and we're like, you know what, for 5, 10, 12, 20,000, I will be able to do it because this home makes sense to me, to my family. It's in the area that I'm looking for. It's in the school district that my kids need to be at. From us waiting and having to rent in another place, the numbers are going to be very, very similar. Now, most of these cases, when it's a small, quote unquote, small difference, with time, the equity will pick up, and it will pick up on the cost that you have purchased. So case by case, I'm not against appraisal gap. I know some people are absolutely not. It really depends on the property. It depends on the client, on the financing vehicle, on the time that they have been submitting offers for, the savings. It depends on a lot of things.
Mhm.
Do we advocate 100% to overpay consciously on a property? No, but this is absolutely not the best scenario for buyers in a lot of cases, but it's still best than continuing renting or not making a decision for your family or for yourself, investing in your future. So having a lot of information, making informed decisions is key, whether you sign an appraisal gap or not.
Yeah. No, I think that it's just the education, right? And the comfort level. That's really what it comes down to. Um, yeah, I think another awesome calculation that buyers specifically in this situation should do is look at the zip code, look at the appreciation over the next 5 years. How much are you gaining from that additional $10,000 that you're putting down on purchasing this house? Because remember, it's an investment. It's just an investment you live in, right? I think that in a minimalist world where we're trying to be more conscious of how we live and how we get attached to things. I do always like to remind any family, right? Like, it's an investment. Okay. The walls are just walls. You and what you bring into the house, that's what makes it a home. And just look at it, learn to look at it as financially, with a financial perspective as much as you can. So certain decisions make sense, right? If you put $5,000, $10,000 into what investment, what is the typical return? What would be the return if you put that additional money down? Analyzing that zip code in that area, which again, our us as professionals, we can help you with that math. Um, I think that just before we kind of like finalize, because I know we've been chit chat.
Now, this is the last 12 months
Beautiful.
in the Chicagoland area.
How? What?
Okay, this is purchase price in this. Obviously, again, every price range is different, every property type is different, but generally speaking, living in a general by Emred InfoSparks, just taking a look at average sales price, this is in the last 12 months.
What is the? How much did it rise?
We have
Like,
average, well, it was 390 at the beginning of 2021, and the home that was selling at 390 last year is selling at 430 this year. So that's the average
that's crazy.
of a single family detached single family house in the Chicagoland area.
Yeah, and everything's math,
Right.
guys.
It's a
Right?
detached, no, it's attached and detached single family. So
And you know what?
and single families.
I love that we're talking about this because this is all stuff that can come to play even when we're talking about these rates, right? Let's look at it. What is the appreciation? About $40,000.
Yeah.
That interest rate, that difference of a point or 2 points, how much is it costing you in the first few years? And you divide and subtract. How much are you still making, even though you're paying a higher rate? It's all math. There's a big side of it that it's just math. So if you can have somebody break it down, I mean, I know you obviously are doing an excellent job above and beyond informing your clients, preparing your sellers, preparing your buyers. And that's really the best service that you can get in this market, right? I think everybody can push the agenda of buy, 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 but why? Show me why. Show me with figures, show me with numbers, educate me on that next level. So I really comprehend what this purchase is doing for me. And I think that if I can leave anyone with this, I think that our clients or consumers, we're all getting smarter. I know I'm getting smarter when I do my shopping for any kind of shopping that I do. I do my little research. There's endless and endless YouTube videos, but nothing will beat a true professional that can level with you and break this information down in a way that you comprehend it, to feel confident on making those decisions and feel proud of making them, right? You don't want your compadre telling you don't buy because rates are high, or don't buy because there's a market crush coming. You want it from the people that do this, and you do this for a living, I do this for a living. So I encourage you guys to look for true professionals while you're getting service. That's from heart, like I mean it.
Oh, I know you mean it. I know you mean it. I know you a little. So let's think, and we are done. What are the requirements that anyone that is looking to purchase single family or condos? What are we looking for as far as lending goes? What do you need from them? Where are the requirements? What are the items they need to provide you with?
So it's super basic. You need to fill out an application, which is really just going to be more like demographic, right? Your name, where do you live, where you work. We run a credit report because we need to have a credit report. There's a lot that lenders leverage from your report. I know that sometimes people want to know kind of an idea, just kind of like in the air, which is good, and we can do that. But ideally, you want to know the raw of like the core of what you need to do to prepare and get pre-approved. So we want to make sure that we have that report on hand. The other thing, documentation, super simple. We need your most recent pay stubs. We need 2 months of your most recent asset accounts. So if you have a checking, savings, 401k, any account that you're bringing to the table, whether you're intending to use those assets or not, it's good to show them because it shows you in a different light. So asset accounts. We also look for anything around your income. I mean, your income. So we need your 1040s, which is your tax returns, your W-2s for the last 2 years. If you are self-employed or get 1099, we're going to look for business taxes. So you just bring those along with your personal and your ID. And in a lot of cases, I know, depending on the type of employment, we might get away with having a good gauge on where the client stands with like pay stubs and a W-2. There's technology when we do this applications. So it's made it easier for us to look at where our clients work, get employment verifications like on the spot, which is great because we can give a client a faster answer. If a client submits an approval with us, we typically have a response within like 2 hours to at least circle back with the client and just give them a follow-up of any additional documentation that's needed based on that initial review. So it's very simple. And I would say also to demystify the process of getting pre-approved, look at it as like you're just getting educated. Don't think about, oh, if I go talk to this loan officer and I get a pre-approval, I'm going to start getting pushed to having to commit to a home the next day. I personally think that everyone needs to know their real estate buying power because you just never know when a good opportunity is coming, right? Especially even if you already own a home, you want to know where you are, where you stand, what can you do, what you can do, so that you're always working towards having that option. Because we all know that one of the most beautiful things in our country is that we can leverage credit. So knowing how we can leverage that credit, it's important, whether you're planning on buying or not. It's like a card. You want to have it. You just want to be like, boom, I can if I want to. So why not? And honestly, it takes very little of your time.
It does. It does. Well, talking about time, we're past our time already.
Sure we are.
I do want to thank you for your time. I know you were taking a little time off, stuck poorly in Cancun.
Yeah.
But thank you for being with us today and for saying yes to coming on board for our Facebook Live. Why working with you? Why choosing Maggie at G-Rate?
I think that the main thing for me is that I always put my client's interests first. And I heavily, heavily believe in speed, accuracy, and communication. And I think that if we can put everything, if we can capsule what we want from any real estate professional, it will probably be that, right? I want to make sure that my clients get the answers they need in a reasonable timeline, and that whatever I'm relaying is very transparent and clear to understand. I'm so fortunate to have a beautiful team working alongside me. So it just gives me that wristband that I need. There's always someone that you can get in touch with if you have questions, if you are, do you want us to run numbers, you want to run scenarios, shoot, if you want to just chat with us, right? Just to have an ear to bend. Like, that's really, I want to make sure my clients are all taken care of, no matter what the outcome is, whether they're ready to buy now or in 2 years, or they're just asking for a friend. That's my biggest passion. And I can tell you that no matter, how the interaction steers, you're going to have the best I have to offer. So
I know that.
Thank
Well, thank you. Thank you, Maggie.
you.
We'll leave our audience rest for the evening. I actually haven't even checked if we have questions, but if not, we can just respond them on the chat. Nancy didn't tell me that we have questions or not. Some people were sharing video. That's awesome. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, we'll take a look at that. I don't want to distract anybody more. But thank you so much, Maggie. Enjoy the rest of your time in Cancun, and we'll talk soon.
Yes. Thank you, my dear. Bye.
And thank you everyone for watching.
Bye, everyone.